I'm going to leave you on this, and this is fitting because it's how I left the Titans post-game press conferences today. This is kind of a difficult concept to explain. I think that the more diehard Titans fans are going to know what I'm talking about immediately, and I'm going to try to explain it to those that maybe have not ever caught up on this. The Titans have certain high-profile people on this team that act kind of funny, and they're kind of a bit amongst us in the media pool after games. Mike Vrabel is the number one guy. I don't know if I've ever mentioned on this show, but I talk about it a lot with media folks and with folks I talk to in real life. Mike Vrabel is funny because, and if you've ever watched his post-game press conferences with regularity, you know this. He's liable to be in a better mood after a loss at the podium than after a win. He's somebody that for some reason, and whether it's always trying to find, you hear about coaches, they're messed up in the head because you hear a guy like Tom Brady, for example, or Sean Payton was talking about this with the Broncos last week. A win doesn't feel super satisfactory all the time because you're searching for that perfect win. You're looking for that perfect performance, but a loss stings way more than a win feels good, if that makes sense. So maybe it's some of that with Vrabel, but whatever it is, after a loss, he's sometimes in a much better mood to field questions and talk about the shortcomings of his team than when he's coming off of a great performance like this, and you're trying to talk about the good things about this team, and he's kind of dismissive of those things. Other guys that are kind of like that, DeAndre Hopkins, he's always got kind of a quiet demeanor, right? Like, when have you ever seen D-Hop get really animated off the field in press conferences with the media? It's really rare, whether they're winning, whether they're losing, whether he had a, 3-touchdown, 130-yard game like today, whether he wasn't targeted once and the Titans got stomped by the Browns, whatever it is. He's kind of an even-keeled guy. And then Derrick Henry, very similar to Mike Vrabel. Kind of, I think he's been rubbed off on by Mike Vrabel a little bit, where sometimes in the losses, he's in a better mood after the game than after a win. That baseline being said, JT, we've established that for these guys. There was a completely different, really surprising energy from a number of the guys that I talked to on this Titans team after the game. Mike Vrabel was the first guy we talked to after the games, and with him, it was the most apparent to me. But Vrabel and Hopkins and Henry, all three of them, were guys that, again, often speak quietly and unenthusiastically after even the biggest of wins. They were all three very clearly excited and happy and juiced today. With Vrabel in particular, there was a sparkle in him, and I'm not somebody that, like, I'm not looking to spin the web of narratives in this way or read too far into things. If you know my work, you know that. So when I say something like this, it's because I really do believe it. It's undeniable. He had a sparkle in his eye, and he had an enthusiasm in his voice, a pep in his step, metaphorically, about this team. Something that juxtaposed with where we last saw him on the field. JT, do you remember us talking about in London and talking about on the show about how this guy looks like somebody that is just has had it up to here and is fed up with this team, fed up with coaching what was kind of a mess. Like, he looked almost apathetic a little bit in London on the sidelines. The body language was not good. And after the game at the podium, the body language was kind of the same. This Will Levis coming in, it feels like it kind of flipped a switch for him. He seemed like a guy who was driving the ship of a team that finally had direction. Somebody came up to the captain's quarters and brought him a map and a compass, and he finally knows where the hell he's going. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but after him, then talking to guys like Hopkins, talking to guys like Henry, it's the same vibe that I got from all of them, that there was a level of excitement, that there was a level of good vibes that was really different than what you and I mean, give your perspective. You were in that locker room in London. You were at those press conferences in London. It was a kind of bottom of the well point for this team and for these players and for the enthusiasm. And there was kind of a lostness in the eyes of a lot of these guys. Today, it was the complete opposite, JT.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it could be, as we talked about on Thursday, that it's a rallying cry for all these teams, no matter what sport. When you have a new guy like that's leading your team out there on the charge, right? Like, it rallies these guys together, and for them to put a win together today, like, it was much needed for them. And like you said, it's it was tough. It was tough sledding for this Titans team, especially on offense through the first 6 weeks. So being able to see kind of why D-Hop was brought in today, I think that's also a big part of it. Like having your guys execute how Mike Vrabel and this coaching staff wants them to execute, and playing like when I was watching the game today, definitely like they were up towards the end of the game, and that's where you really saw Derrick Henry get going, because that's what Tennessee Titans football is, right?
Yep.
When they're up, that's when you unleash Derrick Henry. That's when the defense is the most tired. That's when you start seeing him really get down and dirty there, and they emphasize that heavily. And then they still were able to change it up and have Tyjae Spears break off a 20-ish yard run there as a little change of pace back. And I think that's exactly the type of football that Mike Vrabel wants to play. It's almost like, and it's almost like he had that X factor element that he used to have with AJ Brown today, that he could beat you in any way that this offensive coordinator group wanted, Tim Kelly and this offensive group wanted to today. And I think that's part of the reason why, because you saw something in this Titans team that you really haven't seen for a while.